This is the podcast Person of Interest, where we meet extraordinary people with a story to tell. In this episode, Mike Collier talks to environmental activist Erik Ahlström about the Plogga movement.
Well, hello and welcome from the Stockholm School of Economics in Riga, and we're delighted to welcome Erik Ahlström from Sweden. Welcome, Erik.
Thanks a lot. I'm pleased to be here.
Why exactly are you here? I know that in about an hour you're going to be standing in the auditorium here, the main auditorium at the Stockholm School, speaking to people. What are you going to be speaking about?
I will first ask the people to take off their shoes and take off their socks, because everything is connected and we're not connected anymore. We lose in balance in life, we lose in balance to nature. So I will try to get people to understand we had to get more connected. We had to get the fifth sense, or sense of feeling into our bodies. People that have a lot of sense and a balance in life, they will not throw garbage. That's my first message.
I'm a little bit worried that coming in on the bus, if I'd asked some of the people to take off their shoes and socks, it might have been a little bit more than I could handle. But you mentioned garbage and people getting in touch with their feelings, with what exactly? I mean, what is the connection between this, what some people might call awareness, self-awareness, and garbage? How are you addressing this?
It's like a norm. It's kind of attitude. And one of the attitude is if you see garbage, if you see litter out there, the norm right now is not to pick it up. And like for instance, today when I will have my lectures, I will ask people to stand up, take their shoes and socks off. Everybody will do that, because that's a norm. The norm is to listen to the guy standing in front of you. So they will do as I tell them, even though they think, "Why that Swedish crazy guy? Why is he telling me to do that?" But they will do as I tell them. And that's the same thing with litter. If we will change the attitude, if it's okay to pick up litter, because litter creates litter. So if it's a clean environment, you don't throw garbage. So it is actually simple as that. And plogging means, of course, plocka and jogga, but you don't have to jog. You just have to, once you start finding and looking at the litter, then you will start picking it up, and then it will become clean. And then I will be unemployed.
But this is very interesting straight away, because you're here to talk about Plogga, plogging, which, for those who maybe aren't aware, is, as you describe, basically picking up garbage, picking up litter while you're running, while you're doing some sort of exercise. That's how it's generally known. But what you're talking about now is basically social pressures, social norms, suggesting that it's not just a case of, look, we all smile, we walk around with a garbage bag, we pick things up, we feel better. You're trying to, break some sort of social construct that it's unacceptable to pick up litter? Because most people would say that picking up litter is a good thing. So why is there this barrier to doing it?
Oh, I think it's we have so many barriers in life, and it's also our brains are not customized as the behavior right now. Like I normally, when I talk about plogging, I will tell you that is one of the 5 reasons that is so important. And the number one is our brains and the way we're acting now. Our smartphones only developed in 12 years. So we more or less we used not to have smartphones, and we're not connected to ourselves, our families, our friends, to nature, because we're connected to our phones, both with all the social media and also that we're not walking around in nature anymore. We're walking around, everything get more square, everything get more flat, and it get hard with concrete and asphalt. All the thought of going out in nature and feeling all the 5 senses, we don't do that anymore.
But this is very much an urban audience you're talking about, people in urban concentrations. I mean, there are lots of people living in Latvia who do live out in the countryside. Does Plogga offer anything to them? Because maybe they're better plugged into the cycle of the seasons and direct effects of weather and climate and things.
Yeah, I think so. But for me, I've never been out in the countryside. But if you see the movie Plastic Oceans, and the end sentence there says, "With knowing comes caring, with caring comes changes." And if people don't know that if you throw out a metal aluminium can outside the window, that ends up in the ditches, and then they come and cut the grass, and then the end, it will come in those white balloons, and then they have it in the farms, and then the cows will eat it, and the horses will eat it, and then they will cut up inside. If you don't know that, or if you don't know that a cigarette butt contains about 100 different poisons, and it ends up in the ocean, and it becomes microplastic, and if you don't know that, then you will still throw out that can outside the window. You will still throw out your cigarette butt. So with knowing comes caring, with caring can changes. And in the Western countries, I'm really depressed and sad that we have the knowledge, we have the time, we have the money, we have the infrastructure. And we always say, like the guys in India or Thailand or Southeast Asia, they are the ones that pollute. But we pollute a lot in our countries, and it's just getting worse and worse. That's the thing that worries me.
If we could just dial back a little bit to the basics, there are a couple of things you mentioned there that I'd very much like to revisit a bit later on in the conversation. But you're sitting here in front of me. Hopefully people will be able to see the pictures of this. You're branded from top to bottom with Plogga. It says, "Be a hero." You came into the room immediately with a great sort of feeling of positivity and energy. Where does Plogga come from, and what was the root cause, and how does it exist, say, as an organization, or as I've seen it described as a movement, but what exactly is it? What are the barriers to Plogga, and how is it born?
Okay, how much time do I have?
Well, we've got a few more minutes.
Well, I've always been a nature lover. I've always been outside. For me, I've been organizing different adventure races and multisport, and for me, it's just been a natural way to show people the nature and what I prefer and love. And I was living in a ski resort called Åre in the middle of Sweden. And for me, it was no big deal to pick up litter when I was walking with my son to school and when I was shopping. And then I also started organizing cleanups. I don't really know why, but for us, and then I noticed it was so easy to organize cleanups. All the communities loved it. We got free sandwiches, we got barbecues, we got lift pass from the ski company that we was lottering out. And everybody was getting together. We was just having a big party, and it was really a social event. But Åre only lives about 1,500 people. Then I moved down to Stockholm, and I haven't been living there for like about 20 years. And I noticed it was so much garbage on the streets. I was cycling to work, and I noticed no one was really paying attention. Felt like they are getting numb. It was just, this is just the way it is. And no one was getting upset or angry about it. I felt sad. I didn't want to cycle to work, because then sometimes I stopped and picked up litter. I was trying to make some cleanups and trying to organize, but nothing was really happening. Because in Stockholm, 2 million people are there. But then I was working, as I said, with a different kind of adventure racing. So I'm a name in Sweden. People know me. I also work for Salmon as a brand ambassador. So I've been organizing trail running events in Sweden for like 10 years or so. So I was start running with some of my friends up on a small little ski hill in Stockholm. And then I noticed something was happening. When you add the adrenaline, the endorphin you get when you start exercise. And I can see in the bodies, I can see that in their eyes, they got the same sort of competition to start hunting for the trash. And it was not fake, it was for real. And I was just, wow, this is amazing. I'm not the only one that find this fun, because we was running around smiling and giving us high five, and we were just standing there with our stupid garbage bags and felt like we are the heroes. And it worked. And then once I start doing it, they didn't want to stop either. Oh, let's go for that streets. Let's go for around that corner. Let's go for there. So then that's sort of the movement how it started. And the name, it was just Plocka, Plocka, that's pick, and then it becomes a combination word of Plocka and jogga. It's sort of a humorous word from my girlfriend from Gothenburg. She's from the West Coast, and the West Coast have another sense of humor than from the East Coast in Stockholm.
A couple of very interesting things you said there. You were talking about the initial idea when you were in Åre. and that you organised things there. But you also mentioned that when you went to Stockholm, you felt angry and sad when you saw the litter. But then when you stopped to do something about it, you felt happy. You felt like a hero, as you said. So it suggests that there's an emotional drive behind this. Do you think that is sort of an indirect effect, or is it a direct effect, i.e. you felt so angry and sad that you needed to do something that had emotional kind of content to address that? And if I could, just about the order, when you kind of skipped over the fact that we just organised some pickups, but was there a moment which kind of tipped you over into, I've really got to do something about this? And maybe that was something that made you sort of angry as well.
From my living in Åre, you think?
Yeah.
Not.
I mean, was it the case, for example, of you were running along, and there was a sort of cumulative effect of seeing trash, and it kind of reached a level where you decided, I'm not going to run past this every day?
I think so also, as you said, but I didn't really think as a sport or the movement when I was running in Åre and picking up garbage. It was not, I wasn't that concerned, and that was also because it was at all not so much litter as it is when I went down to Stockholm. So I didn't really think, if I recall, that I was start picking up garbage and running as I did when I started that one in Stockholm. But it's hard to tell exactly the date when it started, and also to exactly know why this became. Well, I know why it became so big, but it's for me to understand all the back philosophic reasons that I would tell you about the 5 reasons why this is so important.
But it was the reaction of other people that made the big difference to you.
I think so. Yeah. Because for me, it was I felt like a lonely wolf a little bit, that no one else really had the same. They didn't feel the same way as I did. And then when I saw these grown-ups behaving like kids, more or less, and just running around and shouting and screaming and having a good time while we're doing it and smiling, and all also people around you. That's another thing. That's Swedes are rather conservative and not so outgoing. But when you're running past them and picking up litter and you inform them what you're doing, they just start laughing and say, "Oh, well done." But if you only would have walked and picked up garbage, then it wouldn't be the same activity. And also, one of the reasons is because you have to look on the brand. The brand is, you have to look, nice colors, nice logo. You should have shorts, you should have running shoes. You should have a good wide smile on your face. We shouldn't look like regular garbage people picking up garbage normally, with a big orange vest on and a big walking shoes with metal in the front. We should like sporty, because that's also what we're trying to show the world what we're doing. So I think that's also one of the reasons why it became such a big thing.
So are there any rules of Plogga then? Are there any things which you do, things which you definitely don't do under this brand name?
Not really. The thing is, I always get asked what kind of bags are we using. Should we use what kind of plastic bags, or should we use recyclable nylon bags? But I say it doesn't really matter what kind of bags you use. It's just, I feel like extension of the litter bin. So we are if litter will end up in the ocean like us. For instance, 85% of all the garbage in our sea, and as you know, the Baltic Sea is one of the most dirtiest sea in the world. And 85% of all the garbage comes from land. It blows in, comes from the rivers. So of course, now it's so much talk about plastic in the oceans, like in 2050 it's going to be more plastic in the oceans than it will be fish. So we have to pick it up, of course, before it enters the sea, and for us, just start picking it up before it enters the Baltic Sea. Like in Sweden, we have this big political week in the middle of this island, Gotland, in the middle of the Baltic Sea. And for me, I felt like, okay, it has to be clean there, of course, because all the litter that on Gotland, on this little island, all the litter will end up in the Baltic Sea. And all the politicians and the journalists and tourists come to this beautiful little island. But still, it was so much garbage, and I felt so ashamed. And I was there with a Swedish environment minister and was plugging with her. And she also said, this is a big problem we have. And so it should be, of course, so natural that Gotland should be clean because it ends up in the Baltic Sea.
Well, the branding side of it and the fun side of it is obviously very, very important. But I wanted to ask you kind of touched on this with the what sort of plastic bags do we use? But you mentioned earlier that infrastructure was important. And is there not a danger that you all go off, you do the run, you collect lots of trash, but then if the infrastructure isn't there, and in places like Latvia, it's got to be admitted that sometimes the recycling culture is definitely not up there with the recycling culture in Sweden, for example. You may be a bit spoiled there. Isn't there a danger that we just go collect all this trash, assemble it, and then if the infrastructure isn't there, it just kind of will make its way back into the sea, it will make its way back into the land, and that you should really be doing something on the infrastructure side as well as just the fun activity side? Or do you exert pressure in that way, do you think?
Not really. I agree totally with what you say. The problem is, we're talking about the norm also. If you go to Singapore or if you go to Japan, they don't have any litter bins. And why don't they have litter bins? Or actually, why is Japan or Tokyo so clean? Because if you buy a chocolate bar or an energy bar or whatever, why should you have a litter bin? Why? Because it's a norm. Because it's always been like that. But if in Japan, they bring it home. They have a little bag, they put it in the backpack or they bring it in the jacket, they bring it home and throw it there. The same in Singapore. You're not allowed to use a chewing gum in Singapore. You get fined if you're just littering. So if also, like some places in New Zealand, really beautiful tourist places, if you have litter bins there, and then it gets full, the litter bin. We are lazy people. What do? We put our garbage around that litter bin, then birds come and rats come, and then it starts spreading the litter, and the wind comes and it blows into the ocean and rivers. So if you take away the litter bins on those places and replace it with big signs where it says, bring your trash home, and then we're talking about this, if people start reading those signs, then they will bring it home and throw it at home and hopefully recycle it at home. So that's my message. It's to have more litter bins doesn't solve the problem, but at the same time to start removing litter bins as we do in Sweden and put the signs where you're not allowed to smoke. You're not allowed to smoke here, but you don't say that what happened to the cigarette butts when it's thrown away. We don't really get the whole message through. We are a little bit how would I explain? We don't. You had to tie the rope in both ends. We don't really do that. We find the easy way that we put up signs. You're not allowed to litter. Or you're not allowed to throw cigarette butts. So we have to educate people.
Well, I have to make an admission at this point in that on my way to the interview here, at the end of the road, I saw a plastic bottle on the sidewalk. I picked it up, think maybe you're exerting your influence already, thinking I need to pick this up and put it in a bin. And then I spent 10 minutes walking around trying to find a bin. Now, I was thinking of this as a very negative thing. I did eventually find one. I must, I did do the right thing. But now that you say, well, maybe I should have just stuck it in my bag and taken it home with me, and that would have been a much better solution. Mm. So,
But as I said, it's the PET bottles, for instance, it produces 1 million bottles every minute, and only 9% is recycled, and it's a waste. Of course, it's made up of plastics, made of oil, and if you buy a bottle of that with soda, or if you buy it with water, I mean, in Sweden we have one of the best waters in the world, and still people buy canned water. Like an example, in San Francisco airport, you can't buy water anymore in bottled waters. You have to bring your own bottle that you refill. And that everything will change. Mm. And one of the reasons also littering getting worse and worse because our behavior, the way we're eating right now, if you go to a supermarket or if you go to the airport, all the food nowadays, you bring food on demand, food to go. You always have your coffee cups with you. But the coffee cups will not look like this in the future. The coffee cups will be the one you will have in your bag. And you will clean it yourself. It will be the same with plates. You will have your own plate, and you can order food, but you will not buy those normal one you take away, sushis or sandwiches. Mm-hmm. Or that will change. It will change, and it will go dramatically fast because we are, using all the resources for the stupid reasons.
And as far as Plogga is at the moment, or you've got a lot of publicity. It's known as a sort of worldwide phenomenon, but you're sort of riding a wave of being a little bit fashionable as well. How do you sustain this, and how do you maybe see the movement developing and diversifying? I mean, can the same approach be taken to solving some other problems which face us?
Yes. So I'll talk about the 5 reasons. I will go through it fast. The one was we're not moving enough, and we have to start moving. And this is a fun way, and especially if you have the polarization with the kids that don't want to move, and the kids that like to move. And to get the kids that don't want to move, and picking the garbage, how fun is that? And as I told you, it became a fun activity. They come back and ask, how long time did it take for a water bottle to disappear? They don't even know. We've been nudging them into fun behavior. So they're moving, and they don't even know that they've been moving. So that's number 1. We have to start moving more. And number 2, about the plastic ocean, it's going to be more plastic in the oceans and fish by 2050 if we don't pick it up. Number 3, we already killed like 60% of all the animals with spines. Is that what you said in English?
Vertebrates, yeah.
Yeah. And you see pictures of whales, you see pictures of birds. They are, instead of taking food, they're eating plastic because it smells like food. So we're killing so much of the wildlife, as I told you before, also with the whales, with the cows and the horses. Mm-hmm. And then the last one, I think is so important, is called the broken windows theory. And that comes from the mayor in New York. It was so much violence, it was so much drugs, it was so much abuse and rapes. So he didn't know how could he change that behavior and make an impact. So he was taking away all the graffiti, he was taking away all the broken windows, and he was putting fines for people like jumping over the fences in the subway. And suddenly things start changing. Not only that, it dropped with the crime and the rapes, and also people were getting closer to each other. They were starting being proud where they were living. They was getting proud where they were working. So, like, if some of the studies has made that if you go to a football field and the stand there is dirty, then it will. You and I will not really talk to each other as we would in a friendly one. If you see the World Soccer, the Japanese audience, even though they lost the game, they went up picking garbage after the other spectators. That's also such an incredible way of just showing their heart, more or less. And I normally compare it to a dirty or clean bathroom. That's one of the reasons why I love New Zealand, because New Zealand, they always flag out where the bathrooms are, and they always keep them clean. If you go to a clean bathroom, you can stay there for a while. You have a good time. Well, not a good time maybe, but in a dirty bathroom, you don't want to go in there. You don't feel at home, and that will be also a big reason. When I came to the airport in Riga yesterday, I felt, wow, I like this place. I like this country. I like the city because it's clean. It feels like structured. I don't feel hostile. I feel like, and it's such an easy thing just to have it clean. When I left Stockholm, it was this, with the Stockholm airport, it was this signs outside where it says, no smoking, big signs. And we had about 10, 20 people, I don't know, they were somewhere from Asia. They were standing and smoking just outside at those signs. And I said, what are you guys doing? You're standing smoking on the big, huge signs. And they were just laughing, because no one was telling them. No one really had the time or the gut to tell them, you're not allowed to do this. We put you in jail, or we cut off your arm if you continue doing this. We had to be harder here,
So that's interesting, because it comes back again to this idea of, social rules, what's considered acceptable, what's considered unacceptable, and how you can reinforce maybe good behavior or behavior which benefits society as a whole via activities like plogging. Mm-hmm. It's nice that you like Latvia. I'm glad to hear that your initial impression, at least, is good. And I understand you're going to be going out and doing some plogging this afternoon out in the countryside.
Yes, and I said you don't have to run. You can do it with a baby stroller. You can do it with a sailboat. You can stand up paddling and go skateboarding, cycling. You just have to change the behavior. And for me, I didn't really feel comfortable in the beginning when I saw some garbage in front of me, and then a guy was behind me. I said, maybe I wait until he passes. But now I do the opposite. I know that this guy is behind me. Yes, I will show him. I care. I will pick up that garbage so he will see it. And then maybe think, wow, that guy, he picks up garbage. And he's not employed to do that. He feels that it doesn't belong there. So that I can easily, even though maybe he thinks it's stupid, I don't care. Maybe I think it's good. Next time he will see me. I doesn't look like a bag lady. I don't collect those to get money. I do it because it doesn't belong there. So it just changes the norm.
Well, Erik Ahlström, thank you very much for speaking with us today. Good luck with the lecture, and good luck with Plogging.
We can change the world together. Thanks a lot.
Thank you for listening. This podcast was produced by SSC Riga. If you'd like to learn more about the topic, visit the open course schedule at SSC Riga Executive Education. For more podcasts, find us on Spotify, iTunes, or the platform of your choice. Remember, share this episode with your friends and colleagues.